Shabbat Shalom. My name is Leslie Berger, co-president of TBO, along with David Youngman over there. A welcome rabbinic candidate, Rabbi Ari Rosenfeld. You'll have some time to chat with him during the Yoneg. You still have time to put an ad into Rabbi Mark's memory book. It's due by May 1st, and all the information is on our website, tbolm.org. And that includes all you people out on YouTube that are not members. You're all welcome to put an ad in the book. Last day to register for Cinco de Mayo dinner is April 28th, also on our website. And Mazel Tov to Alyssa Hess on her engagement to Robert Finch. Yay! Thank you to Rabbi Mark and Kendra Stacey for leading services tonight, and of course Dr. Ray for the beautiful music. Thanks to our tech team, Phil Carey, David Youngman, and Chris Jastrock. Thanks to our ushers, Joe Gorin and Dina Jastrock. And we're still collecting clothes for the needy in the foyer. Check with Dina if you have any questions of what we're looking for. The emergency exits are Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you very much, Leslie. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Rabbi Rosenfeld, whom we'll have a chance to hear from later on in our service. And I also want to welcome Mark Handler and Joan Cutler, who are here. Joan is from Buena Park, Mark is from Iowa. We'll have a chance to greet and schmooze with them during our Oneg. And yes, Alyssa and Robert, Mazel Tov to you. Always good to come back from vacation to exciting news. So well done. For those of you joining us at home on our YouTube channel, now's a great time to make sure you've got some challah, a bissel of your favorite Shabbos beverage, some candles so that you can join with us when we do our blessings here. We have Shabbat greetings from Rita and Bob Rubin, the Magnella family, Ted and Noel Singer, and Jeff and Wilma Shear. I wish to acknowledge that Jeff is a past president of our congregation. Rita is a member of our board and is here with her daughter Sue. Rita, thank you for your continued support. And Eileen and Ted and Noel and Jeff and Wilma, thank you all for your continued support of our Shabbat greetings, a project we began during our lockdown days to try to connect with our congregants, spread some wonderful Shabbat Shalom greetings, and raise a little bit of kesef for the congregation. Please join us following our service for an oneg hosted by our Brotherhood, and our virtual flowers are sponsored by Art and Donna in celebration of Alyssa and Robert's engagement. And the flowers that adorn our bima are sponsored by our Temple Beth Or Brotherhood. Thank you all very, very much. Tonight, well, look, as part of our Jewish psyche, we are used to celebrations and mournings, and sometimes at the same time. When we gather on our weekly Shabbat service, some of us have experienced death of family members during that week. And yet we come together for a joyous Shabbat service, even while we individually might be hurting. Judaism has taught us that we drink from the cup of joy and we drink from the cup of sorrow, and sometimes we do that at the exact same moment. This Shabbat is going to be one of those moments, as tonight we commemorate Yom HaShoah, the night of, not the night of, but the period of mass destruction of our people. We are going to temper our readings, our normal Shabbat readings, with thoughts and meditations about the Shoah, not to relive the horror, but to always remember. This is what we are called upon to do. And so during our service, we will shift our gears. This is part of our jiu-jitsu response to life. Jiu-jitsu, get it? We are able to respond to the blessings and the curses, life and death, sometimes even at the same moment. And so we begin with silence. It is the silence of death. It is the silence of life. It is the silence after destruction, the silence before creation. There are times when songs falter, when darkness fills life, when martyrdom becomes a constellation of faith against the unrelieved black of space around us. In truth, there are no words to reach beyond the edge of night, no messengers to tell the full tale. There is only silence. It is the silence of Job. It is the silence of the 6 million. It is the silence of memory. Let us remember them as we link all of our silences together. As we commemorate Yom HaShoah this evening, we will kindle special lights in memory of the 6 million Jews who were murdered by the Nazis and their collaborators. May the memories of these righteous victims of hatred, intolerance, bigotry, and anti-Semitism, know the peace that was denied to them in this world. And in the shadow of God's presence, may their memories inspire us to banish hatred from our hearts and our communities, and indeed all the world. And let us say, Amen. I invite members of our Brotherhood to come. Our Brotherhood has been leading our Yellow Candle Project in commemoration of Yom HaShoah for many years. I invite members of our Brotherhood to come join the cantor and I here on the bima. There is a special reading they are going to share, the lighting of our lighting of our Yom HaShoah commemorative yellow candle.
Sergio Guzman. That's down right here.
I don't have glasses.
You need glasses?
Yeah. See if you can read that.
All right. Thank you, officers of Brotherhood. Thank you, Rabbi, for such a well-done intro. I'd like to remind everyone that the night to light your yellow candle is next week on Monday, which will be Erev Yom HaShoah, which is actually on the 18th. You can't read it? It's okay. Okay, why don't you start with the lighting? Go ahead and light the candles, and then we'll do the reading. Yeah, go ahead and start lighting, and then we'll do the reading. It's okay. Click it.
This is too fancy for me.
I don't have my glasses either. Oh, okay. Thank you. Everybody have the same reading? Yes, we all have the same reading, right? We can read it together. It's going to come out. Let it. Okay. Here, I want you to hold the mic for it to be in the center of everybody.
Is it the same thing?
Yeah.
One.
We light this
Yellow
yellow
candle to rekindle God's flame, to shine His light upon the world once again, to sanctify the memories of the millions of souls, to honor their prayers and all their lost souls. We bless their existence by being alive, to light this candle as proof we survived.
אשרי הגבור שנשרף והציל לכבוד. אשרי הלהבה שבערה בסתרי לבבות. אשרי הלבבות שידעו לחדור בכבוד. אשרי הגפרור שנשרף והציל לכבוד. Blessed is the match consumed in a kindling flame. Blessed is the flame that softly burns in our hearts' secret place. Blessed the heart that life flickering lights knew to flutter and die without shame. Blessed is the match consumed in a kindling flame.
Written in pencil on the sealed railway car. Here in this carload, I, Eve, with Abel my son. If you see my other son, Cain, son of man, tell him I. Silence. Only silence waiting for our reply. All of them waiting. 3,300,000 Jews lived in Poland before the war. and 3 million of those were murdered. 2,850,000 Jews lived in Russia, and more than 1 million of them were murdered. 1.5 million Jews lived in the Balkans and the Slavic countries, and more than 1 million were murdered. Germany, Austria, France had 650,000 Jews, and half of them were murdered. Rhodes and Cyprus had happy, thriving congregations. So many were lost to hatred and to bigotry. Our brothers and our sisters were murdered everywhere in the days of destruction. They died in cities and towns and in villages and in fields. They died in night and in the fog. They died between dawn and dusk. They died by fire and water, by poison and by gun. They died alone, but we will not forget them. We will remember them. It is hard to conceive of 6 million. The number boggles the mind. And so maybe it would be helpful to understand that if we included the population of the city of Los Angeles, Long Beach, Anaheim, Norwalk, Fullerton, Downey, Whittier, Buena Park, Yorba Linda, La Habra, Hacienda Heights, Cypress, Cerritos, La Mirada, Brea, West Covina, La Palma, Artesia, Santa Fe Springs. If we put all those people together, we have 6 million people. And imagine all of those cities being emptied over a 4-year process. Despots have risen throughout history. Dictators have risen throughout time. And they try to convince us that they are all powerful and that there is nothing that we can do to stop them. All that is necessary for evil to succeed is that good people do nothing. That's the entire power of every dictator and of every despot and of every evil person, every bully in this world. When good people do nothing, they succeed. Which is why, as much as we want to remember the victims, we even more importantly want to draw the lesson that good people can do something to stop it. Yad Vashem and the righteous of the nations. How many people stood up to the Nazis? How many risked their lives for Jews? The number, maybe not as big as we would have hoped, is nevertheless quite large. Over 28,000 people have been recognized by Yad Vashem in standing up against the Nazis. People from Poland, from the Ukraine, Lithuania, Hungary, the Czech Republic banded together and said, no, not under our watch. These are our brothers and our sisters, and we will do what we can to help them. People like Aristides Mendes, who was a Portuguese ambassador to France, who issued papers for Jews to flee to France. Needless to say, he died disgraced by his country. Oskar Schindler, whom our students have just seen the movie about. Marc Donadel, a French Protestant minister who hid Jews. And when the people of his village were saying, I hear somebody around here is hiding Jews, he would say, well, don't speak it too loudly because I might get in trouble. Because he was the one who was hiding the Jews. Raoul Wallenberg, we all know. Of the most ironic of righteous Gentiles is Shinui Sugihara, Japanese consul in Lithuania. The Japanese were allied with whom? Nazi Germany. And here is a Japanese guy issuing papers, saving over 2,000 Jews. Mustafa and Zeneba Hardaga, we met their daughter in 2013. This is a Muslim family who hid Jews in Sarajevo. And during the war in Sarajevo, as they needed to flee and there was nowhere to turn, Israel went in and pulled them out and brought them to Israel. A Muslim family. We heard from Hank Snapper in 2012. This is a man who lives in Long Beach, whose family hid Jews while the Nazis were occupying the upstairs of their home. Yes. And they hid Jews right there. The entire kingdom of Denmark, okay? Not on our watch, says King Christian X. Our brothers and sisters are forced to wear yellow stars. We will all wear yellow stars. And the Danes did. And then when the Nazi says, doesn't matter, we know who the Jews are, the Danes smuggled over 7,000 Jews out of Denmark. A whole country said to the Nazis, no. But the most amazing story are the wives of Rosenstrasse, the wives of Rose Street. These are German wives married to Jewish men. Jewish men are rounded up by the Gestapo. They are going to be deported. These wives protested and went to the Gestapo headquarters where their husbands were being held. And they protested and said, you will not take our husbands. The Gestapo would fire bullets to disperse them. They would flee. They didn't shoot them. They just shot over them. But the wives came back. And they kept coming back. And these men were not deported from Germany. They were sent to a concentration camp in Germany, but they were not deported to the death camps. A whole group of German women said, not on our watch. It is possible to stop despots and dictators, but good people have to be willing to do the job. 28,000, a nice number. Not bad. Standing up against the Nazis. Yes, it would have been better if there were more. But that is the lesson we have to take, because despots and dictators will continue to rise. We've lived with them. We have seen them. We are watching them even now. 28,000. If the number were larger, imagine how many Jews could have been saved. If it wasn't just the wives of Rosenstrasse who said, no, you will not take my husband. Imagine how many Jews could have been saved. That's the lesson we have to take. Because there will be always, Elie Wiesel taught me, there will always be people who will hate. They will always choose hate. We will always have to deal with them. But the difference is that today, more and more people are speaking out when there is hatred. But that number is still very small. Let us learn the lesson of these over 28,000. If we see something wrong, let us be like these 28,000. Let us speak out. Let us remind these bullies and these dictators, not on our watch, not on our watch. Because love and compassion is the only antidote to dictators and despots. Love and compassion. Without that, we're all lost. I invite us to rise as we are able, as we commemorate the memories of our 6 million brothers and sisters who paid the price of callousness and hatred, who died because not enough people said, not on my watch, who died because they were Jews, who died simply because they were Jews. The El Milei we share is a special El Milei in recognition of our 6 million victims.
מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, חמצי מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים ודחורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת 6,000,000 אחינו ואחיותינו שנהרגו על קידוש השם בעל הרחמים יסירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרן בצרור החיים את נשמתם אדוני הוא נחלתם וינוחו בשלום על משכבם ונאמר Amen.
God, full of compassion, whose presence is over us, may the souls of our 6 million brothers and sisters murdered because they were Jews find the safety and rest denied them on earth under the sheltering wings of your presence, with the holy and the pure on high, who shine as the lights of heaven. Master of mercy, cover them in the shelter of your wings forever, and bring their souls into the gathering of eternal life. It is the eternal God who is their heritage. May they be at peace in their places of rest. And let us all say, Amen. We may be seated. Interestingly enough, the most powerful lesson of the Holocaust comes from words of someone who wasn't Jewish. First, they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. Pastor Martin Niemöller was arrested by the Nazis and served time in the Dachau concentration camp, 8 years in the Dachau concentration camp, because he started speaking out against the Nazis. But it was too late. The message is clear to us. We must care. We must care about each other regardless of the language we speak, regardless of our skin color, regardless of our country of origin. We must care about each other because that is what it means to be a human. It means that we open ourselves up to pain, yes, but we also open ourselves up to joy, to tremendous joy, which is what we do now. As we acknowledge the love that exists between, I know it's a hard segue, but again, cup of joy, cup of sorrow, here we are. As we acknowledge the love that exists between Alyssa and Robert, whom I invite to join us here on the Bima for a special opportunity and a special blessing and an opportunity to help lead us in our Shabbat candles. To be a partner with God in the process of creation means we must be open to everything. The joys, the blessing, the curses, all that exist in life. And so, Robert and Alyssa, if you would be so kind to light our candles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, source of all being, who calls us to holy acts through mitzvot and inspires us to kindle these lights of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Now, Robert might be a little new to this, but Alyssa, you're used to this. We don't let anything go by, any monumental event in life, without official paperwork, okay, to verify that, filled out in triplicate, signed, sealed, and stored in our Hellman's mayonnaise jar on the counter on the patio outside. But we have for you all a special blessing in celebrating your engagement. Siman Tov u'Mazel Tov, good signs and good fortune. Iv duet Adonai b'simcha, let us serve Adonai with joy. Let us come into God's presence with song. Mishaberach avotenu ve'imotenu. May God, who blessed our ancestors, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob, Rachel and Leah, bless this groom-to-be, Robert Friedman Finch, and this bride-to-be, Alyssa Hess, who will be joined in marriage under the chuppah. O Holy One of blessing, may their hearts always be open to your guidance on life's journey, and may their union reveal undiscovered blessings. May Robert and Alyssa build a mikdash ma'at, a home that is a sanctuary from life's storms, built on devotion to each other, to learning, to community, and to you. May their love inspire and bless their family, their friends, the community of Israel, and the entire human family. Celebrated this 24th day of Nisan, the 14th day of April, signed by myself, our cantor, and our presidents. I'm sorry, for the rest of us here, you can see our glimpse of our world-famous engagement certificate now, newly created. And we join in wishing Robert and Alyssa a hearty Mazel Tov.
Mazel Tov.
And a Siman Tovu Mazel Tov.
Siman Tov, Mazel Tov, and Mazel Tov, and Siman Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, and Siman Tov, Mazel Tov, and Siman Tov. Yeilanu, Ulecho Yisrael. Yeilanu, Ulecho Yisrael.
Mazel Tov, guys. Congratulations. We continue with our service. It was the cold winter of 1944, and although we had nothing like calendars, my father, who was my fellow prisoner there, took me and some of our friends to a corner in our barracks. He announced that it was the eve of Hanukkah and produced a curious-shaped clay bowl and began to light a wick immersed in his precious but now melted margarine ration. Before he could recite the first blessing, I protested at the waste of food. He looked at me, then at the lamp, and finally said, "You and I have seen that it is possible to live up to 3 weeks without food. We once lived almost 3 days without water. But you cannot live properly for 3 minutes without hope." And that's what our prayers are all about. Our prayers are about hope. I invite us to rise as we are able, as we continue with our Baruch Hu, our call to worship. We may be seated. My father owned a huge men's clothing store in Berlin, and he worked all his life to build up his store, and told me how his store was looted and utterly destroyed on Kristallnacht. The police hunted for him, my mother and 2 sisters, to deport them to a concentration camp, but a righteous Gentile risked his life to hide them in his attic, until my father and mother and sisters were able to immigrate to America in February 1939. On Kristallnacht, my uncle was rounded up with other Jews and deported to a concentration camp where he was murdered. My parents, 5 aunts and uncles in Berlin, were later deported to concentration camps where they too were likewise murdered. My mother was the sole survivor of her family, shattered like glass. Kristallnacht was my family. I invite us to rise as we are able, as we read together. I believe in the sun, even when it is not shining. I believe in love, even when feeling it not. I believe in God, even when God is silent.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed.
Please be seated. How my family survived the camps. What does not kill me makes me stronger. Nietzsche said this about other things, not this. How did my family survive the camps? Were they smarter, stronger than the rest? Were they lucky? Did luck exist in Dora Nordhausen, Auschwitz, or Bergen-Belsen? How did they survive the selection? My mother spoke good German. I see her now at the staging camp, her keen wit dancing around the SS like her young Slavic feet. She was young and good-looking, thin but good-looking. and the SS liked Ukrainian Fräulein. In the cattle car to Dora, to the chimneys of that camp, my mother rode with her family intact, thinner but intact, and ready for work. How did my family survive? Survive is not the right word. I am alive, my father would say, alive because I did not die. Others died. Keep breathing, he encouraged me in difficult times. Keep breathing. Suffering presents us with a challenge to find our goals and our purpose in our life. Make even the worst situations worth living through.
Lay, 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 yay, lay, 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 yay, lay, 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 yay, lay, 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 yay, lay, yay, lay, 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 yay, lay, 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 yay, lay, 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 yay, lay, 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 yay, lay. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nehedor ba'kodesh, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, nora tehilot oseh felech malchutcha ra'uvnecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe uMiriam, ze eli anu ve'amru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai.
As Nazi Germany dominated its surrounding countries, civilians and soldiers began to oppose the situation and began armed struggles. These groups of civilians and soldiers often formed and organized themselves in areas that provided cover, such as forests, swamps, and mountains, because they knew their forces could never compete with that of the Nazi regime. Almost all of their resistance was centered on sabotage and ambushes, specifically in the transferring of military supplies, often bombing rail lines and bridges to prevent movement. At the same time, many Jews in the camps, a makeshift Passover Seder here, a musical presentation there, anything to maintain a sense of dignity as a Jew and as a human.
Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat, Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. Al mekadeshei, mekadeshei shevi Shabbat, ulan yizvoru v'yitangu miduvecha Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat, Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. V'hashvi ratzita bo v'kidashto Shabbat, chemdat yamimoto karata Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat, Shabbat. Yismechu ומלכותך שומרי, שומרי, שומרי שבת וקורא עונג שבת. זכר למעשה, למעשה וראשית שבת. זכר למעשה, למעשה וראשית שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי, שומרי, שומרי שבת וקורא עונג שבת, שבת. ישמחו במלכותך שומרי, שומרי, שומרי שבת וקורא עונג שבת.
We continue with the words of our tefillah. I invite us to rise as we are able.
Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Adonai, sefatai tiftach, ufi agid ilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Ya la 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 la, 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 ya la 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 la. Baruch atah Adonai, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'koneh Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Gula Livnei V'nehem, Lama'an Shemo Me'achava, Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Aracham v'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye hakol atah, Rav le'Hoshia, Morid atah. Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofech olim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishene afar, Michamocha bagivurot, Umidom elach, Melech memit, Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lahachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol. Atah kadosh v'shem hakadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yahalelu hasela. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Please be seated. My mother, Martha Dreesen, hid a Jewish woman for over 4 years during the Holocaust. Because she and Lily Wolf were partners, their business was destroyed on Kristallnacht. Those who tried to stop the Nazis suffered also. Many non-Jews suffered because they tried to help. I will never forget the stories my mother and Lily told of the hiding, the escape to America, and the suffering they experienced because of the cruel dictator, Adolf Hitler. A light snow was falling, and the streets were crowded with people. It was Munich in Nazi Germany. One of my rabbinic students, Shifra Penzias, told me her great aunt, Susie, had been riding a city bus home from work. SS stormtroopers suddenly stopped the bus and began examining the papers of all of the passengers, most of whom were annoyed, but a few were terrified. Jews were being told to leave the bus and to get into a truck around the corner. My student's great aunt watched from her seat in the rear as the soldiers systematically worked their way down the aisle. She began to tremble, tears streaming down her face. When the man next to her noticed that she was crying, he politely asked her why. "I don't have the papers you have. I am a Jew, and they are going to take me." The man exploded in disgust. He began to curse and scream, "You stupid, stupid woman," he roared. "I can't stand being near you." The SS soldiers quickly approached and asked what all the yelling was about. "Damn her," the man said angrily. "My wife has forgotten her papers again. I'm so fed up with her. She always does this to me." The soldiers laughed and moved on. My student said that her great aunt never saw that man again. She never even knew his name.
Al Yisrael Amera Tasi Le'olam Shalom Rav Al Yisrael Amera Tasi אתה הוא מלך אדום לכל השלום כי אתה הוא מלך אדום לכל השלום וטוב עיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני עושה השלום.
We include in our prayers for peace all whose peace, whose shalom, whose sense of well-being, whose health, bodies or minds have been challenged by illnesses or other challenges. We want to include them all in our Misha Berach, our prayers of hope and healing. Our cantor will lead us in our Misha Berach, and prior to that, I will invite you to share aloud the name of a loved one who is facing such challenges to their sense of shalom, their health and their well-being, so that we might include them in our hearts at this time. May all who are facing challenges to their health and their well-being, their bodies, their minds, their sense of wholeness, all who are facing challenges May they be blessed on their journey, a journey that will bring them to a refuah shlema, a return to the wholeness they seek, the health that they desire, the shalom that they crave. I invite you to share aloud the name of a loved one that you would like to include in this prayer of hope and healing. Baruch atah Adonai Rofei HaCholim. We praise you, O God, who helps us bring hope and healing to those who are in need. And let us say, Amen.
Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Hu Yivarech, V'yirapeh et HaCholim, Yishaberach, Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Hu Yivarech, V'yirapeh et HaCholim, and Refana, Ilna, Refana, please heal them. Elna, Refana, Ilna, Refana, Mishabera, Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Hu Yivarech, V'yirapeh et HaCholim.
We pause for a moment of silent reflection, an opportunity for us to listen to the words of our hearts, the melodies of our souls, and the prayers of our young ones. To lead us into this time of reflection, I share this thought. My simple prayer is that in all things I learn to love well, that I learn to touch the ever-changing seasons of life with a great heart of compassion, that I live with the peace and justice I wish for the earth, that I learn to care fully and to let go gracefully, that I enjoy the abundance of the earth and return to it from the natural generosity that is our human birthright, that through my own life, through joy and through sorrow, in thought and word and in deed, I might bring benefit and blessings to all that lives. That my heart and the hearts of all beings learn to be free. And so we pause. Lador Vador, from generation to generation. Cantor and Ray, Dr. Ray, thank you so much always for the music that you bring. David and Chris and Phil, thank you so much for streaming our services. Tonight we want to take a special opportunity. We have a number of candidates who are in the process of interviewing here with Temple Beth Or, and we have one with us this evening. Rabbi Ira Rosenfeld is here with us, and I invite Rabbi Rosenfeld to share a few words about himself so that we might have an opportunity to get to know him a little bit. Rabbi Rosenfeld will be leading the Torah study tomorrow morning, so those of you will be able to have a chance to see him and interact with him during our Torah study, which will be on Zoom and here live too, and here live as well, and also on our Zoom feed. So you'll have a chance to learn a little bit more about Rabbi Rosenfeld there. Rabbi.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Cantor, Doctor. Thank you for giving that plug, by the way. I was going to plug for myself. I appreciate that you did that instead. Yeah, we are going to have interactive Torah study tomorrow morning, but also later on I'll be here for a little bit if anybody wants to chat a little bit while we have a little nosh. So I was here, they said to just take a few minutes to talk about myself. And I asked them, like, how much time do I have? Because as a rabbi, to talk for an hour about myself, I could do right off the cuff. But they said it's about 5 to 10 minutes, and I said, that I better prepare for in that case. Actually, I know I'm here to talk about myself, but I'd rather talk briefly. I know some of you are interested in a little bit about what my background is and all, but I want to dovetail off a little bit about what you talked about. Jews, for me, what has kept Judaism alive to a large extent is the fact that we celebrate life. We don't celebrate war, we don't celebrate death. Unfortunately, in many cultures, there's like the romanticizing of death and pain. We see it in movies all the time, but for me, that's not what Jewish tradition is about. We find ways to celebrate no matter what. And I want to share a short story, not directly about me, but a friend of mine. I grew up in Brooklyn. I grew up in an Orthodox family, modern Orthodox. I thought I was a liberal Jew compared to the ultra-Orthodox Jews that were in my area. There were Hasidic and very religious Jews, but as I grew up, I realized it was still pretty extreme. But again, I managed to take the celebration of life out of it. I realized relatively early on I was not Orthodox, but there was a sense of dedication, a sense of joy when we had simchas, things to celebrate. We really went at it, and I want to share a brief story. So I have a friend who ended up moving to Israel, and he lived on a kibbutz. This goes back a few decades. Yikes, I'm getting old. But on this kibbutz, there was a day, it was during the holiday of Sukkot in the intermediate days. And as many of you know, Sukkot ends with Simchat Torah, which is one of the most joyous days on the Jewish calendar when we celebrate that we went through another year and the cycle of all the Torah portions, and we go right back to the beginning again. More than a cycle, it's almost like a corkscrew where we keep going around, but each time we like to think we're keep rising up. Anyways, a very sad thing happened right before. There was basically a terrorist who was strapped up with bombs on their way to the kibbutz just a few days before Simchat Torah. And one of the members of the kibbutz, for those who know about kibbutz living, it's communal living, like everyone is like family there. A little bit like what I heard here coming in, where people were talking. I walk into a little side note. A lot of times I walk into a temple and it's like completely quiet. I'm in the foyer wondering if anybody's there. And I walk in and I'm like, the place is full. But here, I could tell there were people here interacting, reintroducing themselves, introducing themselves to new people. It was a beautiful ruach, a beautiful spirit. So this is what life was like on the kibbutz. And it just so happened, one friend of his, a member of the kibbutz, was driving up the road and saw someone walking up and knew something didn't look right. They don't know exactly what happened, but they had some kind of confrontation where the bombs that he had on him blew up, and there were only 2 people killed, and that was the terrorist and this one member of the kibbutz. The reason I tell this story is, as sad as it was only a few days before Simchat Torah, and with very little conversation, they said, look, we're not going to cancel Simchat Torah celebration. And he told me, it touches me every time I think about this, that was like the greatest Simchat Torah celebration they ever had. They dedicated themselves to say, we are not going to give in to the hatred and to the negativity and to the rage that so many people in the world have. And this is kind of the story of Judaism. We have a very long history of very sad things that happen, but I don't like to have that define who we are. We define ourselves by the fact that no matter how difficult things get, no matter how horrific things sometimes get, and that's the history of Judaism, the history of the world in many ways, but there are still always things to celebrate. You know, I hear babies laughing and crying. We have a couple engaged, you know, so as much as we have to deal with and take action about the evil in the world, we still are here to celebrate life. So, now I only have a few minutes to talk about myself, but that's fine. So as I mentioned, I grew up in Brooklyn. What kept me involved more than anything was music. I played instruments from a relatively young age, so as a drummer, and I played guitar. I stayed involved more through music, truthfully, than my connection with Orthodox Judaism. And as I grew up, I ended up moving to California, really not pursuing the rabbinate in any way, but kind of running so far away from my upbringing that without realizing it, I ended up coming full circle. I worked as a musician and did other performing, and eventually, as many of you know, if you're in performing arts, you sometimes need a little extra work in between your professional engagements. And I started teaching at religious schools. And it seemed like a nice gig, you know, because it was right in the afternoon. I could still do auditions in the morning and have different things at night. But within about a year and a half, 2 years, I realized right away, wow, this was awesome. Because I grew up with a lot of knowledge through my upbringing. I went to yeshiva, but I also had the music and the performance, and I just loved working with the kids. And I realized, you know, I can take this to another level and become a rabbi, where I could work not just with the kids, but the kid in all of us. I'm a firm believer, no matter how old or young you are, there's still a child in all of us that we are trying to bring out of us. So, and that's when I decided to be a rabbi. I told my wife, and then I got out the smelling salts to make her realize we're going to have a change in plans. And I was very lucky to have been able to stay in the Los Angeles area throughout my career. I talked with many rabbis who were kind of my mentors. I worked at a lot of different religious schools. And most of them said, look, if you're going to be a rabbi, get used to the idea of moving out of LA, because a lot of people want to live in LA. If you move up, you know, to a more remote area, you have a better chance of getting started. But I was lucky to have stayed here. I worked with several temples, and my wife, who is a cantor, and I started our own kind of alternative, because we live in an area where there's a lot of unaffiliated Jews, and we wanted to find a way to get them involved. So we started working with groups of kids, and eventually realizing, oh, these kids have families too, and working with the families. So it's been kind of a part-time thing we've been doing for a few years, and at the same time I've had various part-time and adjunct positions at temples and at different retirement centers. I do some hospice work and chaplaincy work. So that's the short version. So you might be wondering, if I have all this going on, why would I be looking to join a temple? Because over the last several years I've been realizing I consider my life very blessed in so many ways, but I don't have a team to work with. You know, I'm kind of scattered and taking the service that I do to all these different places, which is nice in many ways, but I've been yearning more and more to be part of one community where I can take my love and passion working with children, working with adults, and with everyone in between, people who are very connected, people who are on the peripheral, and finding ways to have activities to get them involved, and to be with one team. And the more I heard about this particular temple and how there's generational congregants here, we have here today, spanning at least 3, if not 4 generations, doing some of the math. Knowing that I can be with a team who knows this temple and find a way that I can be of service with a group that I work with, both the people who are working on the board as well as the congregants, to find new ways to explore how to honor the traditions we have, but at the same time be open to the changes needed to address the people that we have. We don't always know what those things are. We have to try things. Some things stick better than others, but to kind of take that journey, I think it's a point in my career where I would be proud and happy to be able to be a member of a congregation like this. And is my 10 minutes up? Just about. If not, yeah, I'll pick it up later on, and I'll give you the full hour version for anybody who would like to hear it. Anyway, Shabbat Shalom, and thank you all so much for giving me the opportunity to speak for the few minutes.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. Thank you. Thank you. Again, you'll have the opportunity to engage Rabbi Rosenfeld more tomorrow during the Torah study. Begins at 10 o'clock in the morning here at
Rabbi Ira is fine. We don't have to be that formal.
Rabbi Ira will be available for questions and comments during the Oneg, and of course during the Torah study tomorrow at 10 a.m. That'll be on Zoom and here at the temple. Thank you, Rabbi Ira, for being with us. Thank you for your interest in Temple Beth Or. With that, we move to the conclusion of our worship service with the words of our Aleinu, the adoration. I invite us to rise as we are able as we share in an English reading for our adoration. I invite us to read together. Let us now praise the Sovereign of the universe and proclaim the greatness of the Creator, who spread out the heavens and established the earth, whose glory is revealed in the heavens above, and whose greatness is manifest throughout the world. You are our God, there is none else. Therefore we bow in awe and thanksgiving before the one who is sovereign over all, the Holy and Blessed One.
משתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל ארץ ביום ההוא היום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד ושמו אחד ושמו אחד.
Please be seated for a moment. On this particular Shabbat, as we commemorate Yom HaShoah, we want to acknowledge those who have lost family members in the Shoah. If you have done so and would like to share their names, I invite you to join the cantor and I here on the bima or to rise in your place. I wish to acknowledge not that she is dead, but Frances Gelbart, who is a survivor of Auschwitz, the creator of this raised arm of defiance against hatred, with her number tattoo on the arm, the barbed wire of the camps. I do wish to acknowledge our beloved longtime member, Les Dubovy, who himself was also a survivor of several camps, including Auschwitz. And I wish to acknowledge his memory. If you have family members whose names you would like to share, I invite you to do so at this time.
This is a little different, everybody. 5 years ago, I did a history of my roots and my family, and I found testimonials of my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, my cousins, and extended family. And when I was writing their names and reading about them, they all perished in the Holocaust. I realized that no one said Kaddish for them. No one actually knows exactly the day they died. Relatives know the last day they saw them. We don't really know. So in honor of these souls, my family, I would like to read their names. Everyone that I read to you I've researched, and it is part of my family, and thank you for letting me read it. Hannah Jungmann, Herta Jungmann, Willie Jungmann, Adolf Jungmann, David Wasserberger, Leonora Gottesdiener, Elias Wasserberger, Mila Wasserberger, Zelma Wasserberger, Wilma Wasserberger, Bernard Wasserberger, Julia Wasserberger, Frieda Wasserberger, Helena Menheimer, Edda Wasserberger, Anna Chania Wasserberger, Zachariusz Mannheimer, Yaakov Mannheimer, Erna Wasserberger, Franja Gottestein, Dushka Gottestein, Adolf Gottestein, Maria Wasserberger, Maria Landsberger, Esther Zollmann, Fela Zollmann, David Zollmann, Olga Rubenfeld, Zelma Rubenfeld, Emilia Malka Moses, Sarah Bela Silverbach, Rachel Chovers, Yehoshua Chovers, Libele Chovers, Shimon Moses, Manya Wasserberger, Morik Wasserberger, Sonia Wasserberger, Schindel Wasserberger, Isaac Wasserberger, and Vilyush Wasserberger.
Are there any others who would like to share names lost, perished in the Shoah?
In memory of my mother's side of the family, the Khan family, 32 members of the Khans perished. My mother, one uncle who had actually left to Colombia in the early 30s, and my grandmother, they were the only survivors. And yes, so that was my mother's side, yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was the Rosenberg family, my great aunt and husband and 5 children. One made it. Why? Because she was in school in Russia. And I met her in Israel several times. So that was the part of my family. That was on my grandmother, my maternal grandmother's side.
Maternal grandmother's side. Thank you, Ted. Thank you.
I want to say something. My father's sister, husband, 2 daughters, 2 twin daughters. They got caught someplace along the way. All I remember from my parents, my father didn't talk about it too much. It was my Tante Annie. And we never found what happened to them or where they got killed, but probably someplace along the way to the camp.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you. We acknowledge all of our brothers and sisters, the 6 million who perished in the Holocaust, as I invite us to rise as a congregation of mourners for those who have no family to rise for, to recite their names. In addition, we include those members of our congregation and our family for whom we are observing the Shiva and Shloshim period, the 7 and 30-day period. Molly Abraham, the sister of Irene Bergerson, and Phyllis Joyce, the sister of Eddie Goldstein. And to Irene and to Eddie and all your family, our hearts go out to you in the immediacy of the death of these family members. We include those whose yahrzeits have occurred during this past week: Alan Den, Isidore Kaplan, Abraham Lewis Luff, Adam Marcus, Alan Verbin, Max Kritschmar, Bella White, Ben Paivo, Wilma Davis, Rabbi Jacob Mann, Jean Reed, Goldie Berman, Edith Young, Leon Harry Weiner, Bessie Gottgolf, Emma Gordon, Leland A. Pierce, and Walda Mantell. To those names, we link the names of those for whom we are observing the Kaddish period: Mark Lightman, Stephen Z. Levoot, Harlene Brow, Tim Enriquez, Lenny Lightman, Lorraine Stein, Harry Fox, Ed Ginter, Dr. Alan Sherman, Mary Lewis, Joel Lowenstein, Arthur Krieger, Maria Paulus Osborne, Ellen Hope Tews, Martin Becker, Nahama Fragoso, Allegra Gordon, Cyrus Shade, May Salinger, and Myron Cristal. If there's a loved one whom you are remembering, I invite you to share that name. Mark, you...
Patty Handler, my wife,
Thank you.
passed.
No.
I also have some people that lost in the
Holocaust? Would you like to mention them too?
Yeah, and I also have members of my family that I lost in the Holocaust. My great uncle couple, my great aunt Anya, and there's a couple, their boys there that were murdered, and one of my cousins there did survive.
Glad to hear that. Sorry for your loss.
Up here, go down.
If there's a loved one whom you are remembering and would like to share that name aloud before we recite Kaddish, I invite you to do so at this time. In commemoration of Yom HaShoah, the Kaddish we share this evening will be a bit different. Interspersed through the Aramaic words are the names of the various camps and sites where our brothers and sisters perished. So we will share this Kaddish intertwined with the names of these places of death. Yitkadal Lodz, V'yitkadash Gurs, Shemei Rabbah Warsaw, Be'alma Divrach Hirite Bogdavonka, V'yamlich Malchute Ravensbrück, B'chayechon V'yomechon Vilna, Uvachaye Dechol Beit Yisrael Treblinka, Ba'agala Uvizman Kariv Chelmno, V'imru, Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mevarach, Le'olam U'almei Almaya Levov, Yitbarach V'yishtabach Belchek, V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam Maidanek, V'yitnaseh V'yitadar Madhausen, V'yitale V'yitalal Birkenau, Shemei Dekudesha Berichu Babiyar, Le'ela Bergen-Belsen, Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Dachau, Tushbechata V'nechamata Auschwitz, Da'amiran Be'alma Theresienstadt, V'imru, Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shmaya Buchenwald, V'chayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Stutthof, Oseh Shalom Bimromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Kluga, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. So be born. We may be seated. The cup of joy and the cup of sorrow. It is how we Jews celebrate life in all of its glory, in all of its beauty, and in all of its horror. The cantor and I will share the words of our Kiddush. Following that, we will share a concluding song, a reminder of what is truly the nature of the world around us. And then we will do motzi. So as you enter the social hall, please feel free to take a glass of juice or wine, as is your preference, and then we will be able to nosh and schmooze during our oneg. But with the words of our Kiddush, we acknowledge the blessings of the life in which we live, that we are living in a free country, that we are able to celebrate as Jews, that we are able to join together with family in acknowledgement of happy occasions, the engagements and various births and happy events that take place, that as a community we are able to come together and to share our burdens of sorrows. With the words of our Kiddush, we toast the blessings of life.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei beriach hafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher וקדשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו ושבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה בראשית כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים כיוונו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Amen. L'chaim. I invite us to rise as we are able. If you are comfortable putting your arm around the shoulder of someone next to you or holding the hand of someone next to you, please do so. We conclude with a reminder that all of this world is but a narrow bridge, and the main thing to remember is not to be afraid. Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar me'od.
כל העולם כולו ישר צר מאוד, ישר צר מאוד, ישר צר מאוד. כל העולם כולו ישר צר מאוד, ישר צר מאוד. והעיקר והעיקר לא לפחד, לא לפחד כלל. והעיקר והעיקר לא לפחד כלל. והלילה יא לילה 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 יא לילה לילה יא לילה לילה יא לילה לילה לילה. כל העולם כולו ישר צר מאוד, ישר צר מאוד, ישר צר מאוד. כל העולם כולו ישר צר מאוד, ישר צר מאוד.
With the words of our motzi, we are grateful to God for all that sustains us physically and nourishes us spiritually.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avon.
My special thanks to our brotherhood. Thank you very much for starting our evening with our yellow candles. Thank you for making these candles available to the congregation. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, Rabbi.